Hi and welcome to this Blueberry Markets video update with me, John Kibler, head currency analyst. In this video, I'm going to take you through dollar yen, as we could be seeing another bit of a push back to the downside in the very short term. Now, to be honest, dollar yen looks more likely to move back to the upside just because we have this overall bullish trend here. The market is making clear high highs, high lows on this weekly time frame, and if we're going to follow the sort of law of trend, if price is making higher highs and higher lows, we should expect a move back to the previous high for either price to continue through that high or to reject it and move back lower. So what we've got here is the market making higher highs and higher lows. So if we were to see a bullish reaction here, we would expect to see the market maybe push back towards the 133.64s. So the yen has actually been getting stronger lately, however, so that's why I'm expecting maybe a little bit more downside. The strength meter has been suggesting that the yen was the strongest currency last week. We saw it rally again this week, however, all of the sort of yen pairs have come back into key structure points, which has saw price bounce for the past couple of days. So if I just go down to the daily chart, we can see that we've bounced just from that previous structure point through there. Now, if I go back to the weekly, what I like to look for is what happens at these kind of key low areas and what happens when price changes and kind of goes from being in this sort of retracement phase in here and then goes into an impulsive leg. Now, we've covered this quite a lot on previous videos. We've already kind of talked about it on the recent sort of pound US dollar video, but what we typically see in that impulsive leg is the market will make clear distinctive patterns. So for instance, down through here, price was in a downward trend. It was making lower lows and lower highs. It then broke that trend and the market started to push higher, making higher highs and higher lows. Now, if I was expecting a change of trend to happen here, I'd be looking for the same pattern to come into play. I'd be looking for price to come into an area of support, and I'd be looking for price to then start making higher highs and higher lows in order to trade back to a significant resistance area, okay, or those significant highs. Now, we can see that technically we don't have that yet. Technically, we are still making lower lows and lower highs because price hasn't made a new high. Okay, it hasn't completed the higher high pattern, so technically we're still looking for those bearish opportunities here. So if I was to go to a daily as well, you can see that in a little bit more detail. Price has made a new lower low, lower high, lower low, and look at how price is kind of forming or shaping today. It looks to be forming as a bearish inside day. Now, two things can happen here on a bearish inside day. Price could rally to the upside here and reject down. That would be a false breakout pattern, which can see price move back to the downside, or we could break the low of that day, move to the downside as well. Alternatively, price could just completely ignore our bias and then break through that high, give us the opportunity to then be a buyer of this market. But I do feel that there could be some slight downside to this, and the reason being is a lot of the times as well, you'll see price react back at a previous low to see that momentum gain again in the market. So I'm actually interested to see if price will trade a little bit lower. Maybe if we can even come back into this area down here. If I just bring in that line a little bit lower, around about 130-120, in order to then look for a long opportunity, because the characteristics I can see here is that price has started to push up. So this was the key high in here that I wanted to see get broken. We haven't broken that yet, and you can see that we've kind of formed a little bit of a double top pattern there, and price is currently breaking through the neckline of that pattern. So that to me would suggest that we're more likely to come and retest 130-121 than we are to break out of the high there and move back to the upside. If price does that, however, because obviously, you know, the market may ignore our bias, it may trade through that level, and if it does, we've got to flip our bias at that point. We've got to say, okay, well, maybe sellers aren't going to be as active in this market as we thought they would, and buyers are stepping back in at this point. But what we can look for is opportunities to potentially move back to the downside, because with a sort of weekly trend or weekly impulsive phase, we often see the daily or the 4 hour making those higher highs, higher lows, or lower lows and lower highs, depending on the direction of the market. So if I'm looking at this from a daily point of view, and if we're looking at that daily impulsive leg through here, okay, and then I'm just going to go down to an hourly time frame, you'll see that price makes lower lows, lower highs. Okay, what can we expect here? Well, if the daily forms that bearish inside and we're going to see maybe an impulsive leg back down to there, the hourly should make lower lows and lower highs. And what do we have here? Price has broken through that low there. We have a lower high already. So all I'm looking for now is another lower high. Where is that lower high going to come into play? Now, usually we just look at previous areas of support turned resistance. Okay, so what we can look at, if I zoom in a little bit, is where could those areas come in? Well, we've got this area down through here, okay, where there's the neckline of the pattern, but we also have this area up here where price originally started to push to the downside, where those buyers turned into sellers and we moved lower. Now, why do I pick out two areas? Because what we have to wait for is how price reacts to the resistance. Okay, I don't know whether price is going to react here or whether it's going to react here. All I know is that those are areas where price has reacted from in the past. So I have to wait for price to get there, which it may not. Price could continue to push to the downside. However, if price does pull back, I'm going to be looking at these two specific areas in the market. Now, if price just blows straight through the neckline, that's great. I'm going to ignore it because that's not what I'm looking for. If price just does this and then comes into this area, then I could say, well, sellers came in at this point. Nothing's changed in the dynamic of the market. So I'm looking at the potential for price to trade to the downside here. Now, what that would look like is some type of bearish price action on this particular time frame, or I would go lower. So it's all kind of, you know, the multiple time frame analysis. So in that hourly leg, if I was to go to the 15-minute chart, what do you notice? Well, you notice that price formed a head and shoulders, and we were getting lower lows, lower highs. So if price was to go all the way back up into this level here and form either a head and shoulders pattern, okay, or anything to suggest that you're starting to get lower lows and lower highs, you could assume that sellers are coming back in at this point, and then you could look for your opportunities to the downside. Okay, hopefully that made sense. So looking for maybe potentially dollar yen coming down towards 131.21. We are seeing a little bit of a downside move on the dollar index at the moment, which could also add to the potential for this market to come down towards this 131.21 area. But all the analysis really is starting from the weekly or even the monthly. You know, bearish sentiment here at the moment. Weekly is in the retracement phase of an uptrend. Daily is still making lower lows and lower highs. We have a bearish day forming at the moment. 4 hour time frame is breaking through that double top pattern, making a new low. Hourly has already completed the lower low. So we can start potentially looking for short ideas here. Hopefully that all made sense. If it did, leave this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to see some more Forex trading content. And I'll catch you in the next video.